June 29 Early Fathers Readings. Irenaeus against Heresies, Book 2, chapters 15 to 17. Why their aeon scheme has no coherent logic. Let me return to the question of these eons, those strange imagined emanations the heretics parade before us. If their story is true, then why is the number and structure of these eons so arbitrary? Why an ogdoad and not a triad or a pentad? Why exactly 10 eons from Logos and Zoe and 12 from Anthropos and Ecclesia? They say this order explains why the year has 12 months or the day 12 hours. But that's just nonsense. They craft their entire divine world to mimic the patterns of creation, and yet claim these beings are prior to creation itself. But if these aeons are indeed more ancient, why does their structure mirror what came after them? Their model is backward. They want creation to be an image of the aeons, and yet all their explanations are taken from creation itself. If the Father formed the pleroma with such numbers in mind, then he fashioned it for the sake of the visible world. In that case, the pleroma would exist to serve creation, not the other way around. If the pleroma came first, why does it copy creation? So tell me, if their pleroma came first, why is its shape and number drawn from the patterns of the created world? If they claim the pleroma is self-sufficient and timeless, then why does it look like something made to match creation's cycles and parts? If it was made for creation's sake, like a clay mold prepared for a statue, then creation has more value than the mold. That is, the visible world would be greater than the invisible one. This flips their whole system upside down. They cannot escape this dilemma. Either they must say the Father created without reason, a foolish thought, or they must admit he shaped the pleroma for the sake of what came after. And if so, their whole framework collapses into incoherence. Their imaginary world requires endless gods. If they resist this conclusion, they're forced into something worse, that there exists another system above their pleroma, a deeper world their Bythus copied when forming his realm. If the demiurge modeled creation on the pleroma, then Bythus must have copied some deeper source too, and that source would need its own source, and so on without end. This is exactly the trap Basilides fell into. He imagined 365 heavens, each giving birth to the next, as if divine reality was a cosmic chain letter. The only proof he gave was the number of days in a year. But even he couldn't explain where the pattern of the first heaven came from. At some point, even he had to admit a higher being, an unnameable, gave it shape. But that just pushes the question further up the chain. If you say the unnameable gave the shape, then what shaped the unnameable? The absurdity never ends. The simpler and truer path, one creator. How much safer and saner it is to affirm what is plainly true, that the one God, the Creator, made all things from himself according to his wisdom. He needed no higher pattern, no invisible realm of emanations. He is complete in himself. It is better to say this than to get lost in their endless myths and finally arrive, breathless and broken, at a silent God they've only clothed in confusion. These heretics even mock us for holding to the creator of this world, as if we were stuck in some lower realm. But they do the same to each other. Basilidians accuse Valentinians of not climbing high enough. Valentinians accuse others of stopping short of the 30th aeon. Why not say there are 4,380 eons, one for every hour in a year? Or double it and claim that includes the nights. One absurdity begets another. The higher they climb, the more ridiculous their tales. How were the eons born? No one knows. Now, how did these eons come into being? Are they like rays from the sun, united but distinct? Or do they split off like one man from another, with separate forms and shapes? Or are they like branches growing from a tree? Do they share the same substance? Were they born at once or in order, some older, some younger? These are not small questions. If the aeons came forth like men from other men, and if they differ in form or nature, then they cannot all be of the same substance. But if they are of the same divine nature, they cannot suffer change or passion. Yet these heretics say Sophia suffered, fell, and gave birth in ignorance. But how can a divine being suffer ignorance if she comes from the Father, who is impassible and perfect? Either she shares his nature and cannot fall, or she differs from him and should not be called divine. Their God is either ignorant or cruel. They say the aeons are like torches lit from one another, each light kindled from the first. But if so, all must share the same essence. If one can suffer, all can. If none can suffer, then none did, including Sophia. Their system collapses either way. They've painted themselves into a corner. Worse, they say Logos, the divine word, was ignorant of the Father who produced him. What blasphemy! If the Word exists in the Father, and the Father in him, how can he not know himself? This may be true of men born in darkness, but not of the eternal Logos. The Sophia of their system, who falls into passion, fear, and confusion, is not divine wisdom. She is a fantasy born of error. Blaming ignorance on God is the height of folly. And here's the worst part. They claim that the root of all evil is ignorance, and then claim that ignorance came from the greatness of the Father himself. If his greatness made him unknowable, and that unknowability caused ignorance, then they have made God the author of evil. What madness! If he could be known later, why not from the beginning? Was he changed? Did he wait until too much damage had been done? If Christ came to reveal what the Logos could have revealed from the start, then God withheld what could have spared them their errors. Their Father, according to them, is either helpless or heartless. My conclusion: one God, one Word, one wisdom. So I ask plainly, why not confess the truth, that there is one God, one wisdom, and one Word, perfect, powerful, and impassible? He formed the world from himself, not from error or blindness. These wild tales of ions, ignorance, and fallen divine beings are not only incoherent but impious. Let them keep their 365 heavens. We proclaim one heaven, one Lord, one faith, and one God who is above all, through all, and in all. Ephesians 4:6. Augustine, The Confessions, Book 10, Chapter 31, Section 47. When the temptation cannot be abandoned entirely. Placed in the midst of these temptations, I find myself struggling daily with the desire for food and drink. This temptation is unlike others I've overcome. I was able to cast off sexual immorality once and for all. It no longer has a hold on me. But I cannot do the same with hunger. I cannot simply decide never to eat again. My appetite must be restrained, not severed. I must keep the pull of my throat balanced, not too tight, not too loose. It's a discipline, not a denial. Who, Lord, is never pulled beyond what the body truly needs? If someone like that exists, he is great. Let him praise your name. But I am not that man. I confess it. I am a sinner. Yet even so I praise your name, because the one who conquered the world now speaks to you on my behalf. The one who prays for the weak members, Christ, your Son, includes me among the weaker members of his body. He intercedes for me, not because I am strong, but because he is. You, O Lord, saw the part of me that is still unfinished, and what you saw you did not despise. You have written all of it, every part of me, in your book, the completed and the incomplete. Nothing is hidden from you. And what is still weak in me, Christ carries before you with grace. John 16:33, 4, 1 Corinthians 12:22, Psalm 139:16. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologica, Part 1, Question 90, Article 2. Whether the soul was produced by creation? Objection. It seems the soul was not produced by creation, but came from some pre-existing matter, since all things that begin to exist seem to come from something. Responsio. I answer that the human soul must be created by God directly, not drawn from any pre-existing material. This is because the soul is spiritual and not composed of any physical substance. Everything that begins to exist either comes from another thing, generation, or from nothing, creation. Since the soul is not made from matter and cannot be produced through natural generation the way a body is, it must come directly from God's creative act. God alone has the power to create in the strictest sense, to bring something into being from nothing. The soul is simple, indivisible, and spiritual. It doesn't consist of parts, and so it can't be made by the compounding of anything. Therefore, it cannot arise from any pre-existing thing or by natural processes, and must instead be brought into being ex nihilo, by God himself. This does not deny that the body may come through the natural line of human generation. But the soul, its very essence, must be created directly by God and infused into the body. And this creation happens not before the body exists, nor long after it, but at the moment the body is properly disposed to receive it. Quick Summa. The soul is not made from matter or through natural processes, but is created directly by God. Illustrative story, Zachary and the blank page. Zachary sat in front of a blank page. He liked woodworking and building things, taking raw materials and shaping them into chairs, frames, or shelves. But this time, his teacher gave him a different kind of assignment. Create something from nothing. Not carve wood, not repurpose parts. Just imagine and make. He struggled. He could glue things, he could whittle. But this wasn't that. How do you make something that wasn't there before, not even the pieces? His teacher smiled. You can only do that with a story. You create the characters, not out of scraps, but from your mind. No one else can. You are the author. That's when it clicked. Just like Zachary with his characters, God didn't take a piece of spirit from somewhere else to make the soul. He didn't recycle. He authored it, fresh, whole, unique, each one a new act of creation.